Do we really need to knead bread dough? Today, I'll show you how to make incredibly soft, fluffy to crusty artisan loaves without kneading, using one simple dough that's perfect for almost any bread you want to bake at home. So let's get started with this easy no-knead recipe. This is my go-to no-knead dough. I'm using slightly warm water, around 31 degrees Celsius. That's my preferred temperature because it gives the yeast a comfortable environment to wake up and start working. For the yeast, I love using instant yeast because it's quick, reliable, and there's no need to activate it separately like active dry yeast. A little extra virgin olive oil. Besides adding flavor, it helps create a softer crumb and keeps the bread fresh a little longer. Now add the honey. If you don't have honey, don't worry. Sugar works just as well. Give everything a quick stir until it's well combined. Now let's prepare the dry ingredients. For this recipe, I highly recommend bread flour. It has a higher protein content than all-purpose flour, which means it develops a stronger gluten network and helps this dough rise beautifully even without traditional kneading. Now add the salt. I'm using about 8 to 9 grams, which is just the right amount for a balanced flavor. Now pour the liquid into the flour. Mix everything together until there isn't a single patch of dry flour left. Don't worry if the dough looks rough, sticky, or a little messy. That's exactly how a good no-knead dough should look. One important tip: every flour absorbs water differently. Some brands need a little more water, while others need a little less. So if your dough feels unusually dry, add a splash of water. If it feels too wet, sprinkle in a little flour. Make these small adjustments now before the dough begins fermenting. Once everything is mixed, cover the bowl and let it rest for 30 minutes at room temperature. Now come back and have a look. I haven't kneaded this dough, I haven't touched it, but look at the difference. It's smoother, more elastic, less sticky. So, what happened? While we were waiting, the flour slowly absorbed the water and the gluten began developing naturally all on its own. This is one of the biggest reasons no-knead bread works so well. Now let's give it just one quick stretch and fold. It takes less than a minute, but you'll immediately notice the dough becoming stronger and holding its shape much better. This gentle technique strengthens the gluten without knocking all the air out of the dough. That's why you'll see it used in so many successful no-knead recipes. But if you're making enriched doughs like brioche, milk bread, or recipes containing lots of butter, eggs, or milk, traditional kneading is still a better choice. Cover the bowl again and let it rise at room temperature for about 2 hours, or for even better flavor, refrigerate it overnight. This batch actually spent the night in the fridge. That's why the dough feels a little firmer, and you can already see some small bubbles on the surface. Now leave it at room temperature for about 30 to 45 minutes. This allows the dough to warm up slightly, making it much easier to shape. First, let's make a simple sandwich loaf. Transfer the dough onto your work surface and lightly dust the top with flour if needed. Gently flatten it into a rectangle that's roughly the same width as your loaf pan. Now start rolling the dough tightly from one end to the other. As you roll, gently tighten the dough with each turn. This creates surface tension, helping the loaf rise higher and bake with a beautiful shape. And place it into the loaf pan. Press it down gently so it sits evenly in the pan. Now let it proof until the dough rises just above the rim of the pan. While it's proofing, preheat your oven to 165 degrees Celsius fan forced. Once fully proofed, bake for 30 to 35 minutes or until beautifully golden brown. Now let's make the artisan loaf. This is another dough prepared using the same no-knead recipe. Fold the left side into the center, then fold the right side over the top, slightly overlapping. Now grab the top edge and roll everything tightly. Each roll builds tension on the outside of the dough, and that's one of the biggest secrets to getting a tall loaf, instead of one that spreads flat in the oven. Once the seam is sealed, place it seam side up into an oval banneton basket. If you don't have a banneton, no problem at all. Simply line a bowl with a clean tea towel, dust it with flour, and use that instead. Now let it proof at room temperature or refrigerate it overnight for even more flavor. While the dough is proofing, preheat your oven to 220 degrees Celsius. Now carefully turn the dough onto a baking tray lined with baking paper. Using a very sharp blade or knife, make one confident score across the top. Now here's a simple trick. Spray a little water around the baking tray. That moisture creates steam during the first few minutes of baking, helping the crust stay flexible so the bread can expand properly. Then cover the loaf with another baking tray of a similar size. This traps the steam and works much like a Dutch oven. Bake covered for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, remove the tray. Now deepen the same score slightly. This gives the expanding dough more room to open up, creating a taller loaf with a beautiful ear and better oven spring. Return it to the oven and bake for another 25 to 30 minutes. The longer you bake, the darker and crispier the crust becomes, so adjust the final baking time to suit your preference and just look at the result. So, do we really need to knead bread dough when baking at home? With just one simple dough, you can make all kinds of homemade bread, from a soft sandwich loaf to a crusty artisan loaf, all without traditional kneading. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need a stand mixer. All you need are a few simple ingredients, a little patience. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who thinks homemade bread is too difficult. Thanks so much for watching. Happy baking, and I'll see you in the next recipe.